Everyone, it's Chris. I'm back again today to talk more about our Dragon project. We have lots of different sounds that we've created for it so far, but right now I wanted to talk about one specific sound. I want to talk about the dragon breath. Breathing fire is cool. Having the fire change according to the camera's direction and perspective. Also very, very useful. So in the basic setup of the project, there is just a single sound being triggered. It's sort of long enough to cover the actual breath, but it is just a one shot. So we want to talk about how this particular sound was created, plus talk about how we can how we can start and stop our sounds in MetaSounds and also in Wise. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this particular dragon fire breathing was created. We're going to start out in MetaSounds. So here in our content folder, we've navigated down into our mountain dragon and audio, and we'll find our MetaSounds folder, and in there is a meta sound that I've created for this dragon breath. This is the most complicated one I have set up for this particular project with both synth elements and also a couple of different samples that are mixed together and playing back in a particular way to give that effect. So to give a sense of what sounds we have, I have a couple of knobs here. All the knobs you see here are just inputs, and we have those connected to different variables here, and those variables connect into different points along our MetaSounds graph. For our purposes here, we have our mono mixer that has all of our different bands here. In fact, I moved this one over here off of that one. I'm going to plug it in over here so it affects the right thing. But all of these variables are connected to all of our inputs over here, which gives us our knobs. And so we are going to adjust the different sections of our dragon breath here to show you what they sound like. So I can hit play here, which will start the entire MetaSounds, but I also have a couple of triggers for breathe fire start and breathe fire stop. So if I hit play here, in fact, let me just do this so I can turn this down, have control over it. Here we go. Let's play that sound. At a lower level overall, we'll play it so I can talk over it, because there is a lot of noise and a lot of stuff going on in there. So let's go ahead and play our different layers of the sound. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to turn down everything except for our breath fire start mix. So this breathing fire sound comes basically in three parts. A lot of looping sounds are a start, a loop, and a stop, or a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so we have a start element here, which is the fire sort of igniting and kicking up. All right, there is a heavy flange kind of sound to that to give that sort of ignition fire sound. There's a couple of different of these. And so this will give us the initial portion of our sound. Then we have Fire A and Fire B. These are two sample sets that are come from building the actual flame portion, which is this B part here. So take the start out there. And so this is a designed in the DAW starting out with pink noise, but layers of distortion and other effects on top of that to give us this strong, but still sample-based portion of our sound. Then over here, we've got the more guttural, this is actually a portion of a voice recording of my voice. Also with its own set, right? There's different ones of those. And that just gives the low guttural element of the dragon fire breath. That is me trying to be as low and guttural as I can, plus obviously pitch shifting, LFE or low end enhancement overall, just to give it some feel of size and weight. And so mixing these together, let's do this. So how much of the fire do you want? How much of the guttural do you want? How much of the ignition do you need in the beginning? And then at, we'll leave the end. There's also the synth layers here. In the middle, we have another sort of layer of pink noise that has been split out into 3 bands, and those different bands are being affected in different ways. So do you need more of the low end rumble, more of the just sort of meat and grit of the fire, or this is the high sizzle overall? And so we combine all of those together. Oh, and also, I guess I should point this out. In this breathe fire start, if I trigger that, it starts moving filter bands. This is why I wanted to keep this portion live in the sort of real-time synthesis. But we got multiple synth bands, multiple EQ bands that are sweeping around, providing that feeling of movement of the fire and flame. And we can always just then balance that out against, I guess I should start this over again. And I could sit here for quite a while, finding the perfect balance of all of this variations of noise and filtering and flanging, all creating the sense of this wall of flame. We also have the stop cue. There is a end to this fireball. So if I hit start this trigger, we'll hear the band start moving around, and then stop. There's a final end to the fireball. So that's just mixing around. Let's kind of look and see. Here is the synth. Let's go to that part. Let's take down all of this. Start that up. We've got our synths moving around. And I'm going to come over here and just turn this down so I can talk over a whole bunch of noise. Oh, come on. Somewhere in there. Fine. 0.05? Yeah, that's what I want. All right, so we have 3 bands. We have our pink noise split out into 3 bands. They're crossover bands, or they're crossovers for those bands, set at 80 hertz and 5,375 hertz. Gives us more control over where all of the processing happens on the bands. Input gains, if I needed just more gain of a particular band into all of this, this is the output. I end up often using this as the mix, but if I needed to drive any more signal into the different elements, we have our wave shapers if we wanted to add a little bit more grit overall. And then we have our different filters. So if you look at a particular band here, just our middle band, we have a mono mixer, allows us to gain everything up. We have our wave shaper. And then we have our biquad filter. It's set to a parametric EQ. Here we have inputs for triggers for start and stop, which will trigger this trigger repeat, which will create a random float number between the crossover bands. So since this is the middle of the band, or sorry, this is the middle band, it is going to, we only want this parametric EQ to sweep in between these filters so that it doesn't go out and affect other bands that we don't want it to. There are controls for gain and bandwidth. There's control for interpretation time. This is random, so it just jumps to different values, which sounds kind of ridiculous by itself or without any interpretation. So interpretation time will give us some sort of ramp in and out. Where's my enter time? On my filters. High filter interpret time, mid filter interpret time. They're about a half a second. This is about 800 milliseconds. And that gives the movement, the sweeping, the moving bands of this parametric EQ to give that sense. Then there is also a flanger on each band, and you can turn up and down how much flange you want per band. If you turn them all the way down, then all you're hearing is that biquad filter moving around. The issue with the flangers is the LFO is so predictable and smooth. It's that nice sine shape. You can do things to mess with it a little bit more, but this randomizing and moving the band around gives a little bit more of that noise overall. So that's the large portion of this MetaSounds, is these three bands being split up into our gain, our wave shaper, our moving filter bands. The low band doesn't have any movement on it because you'll lose that massive feeling. All of a sudden it'll just sweep away and you'll lose all of this sense of presence of this sound, or the weight of the sound, really. Each one of them has a flanger. Then they go into this mono mixer, 8-channel mono mixer, each with its gain control. Those are the knobs we were using to adjust the volume. Then there's these three wave players. They are just randomizing. Each have an array of sounds. You've got the starts. You've got A and B, which was the guttural noise and the designed flame. And then the stop is over here. Well, we'll get there. So we got our mono mixer to control everything. We have a limiter, just brings everything together under the same umbrella of volume control. And then I have the start and stop. Sorry. Stop. So this pink noise constantly generates. There is no start and stop to this noise. So what you instead will do is you will have your ADSR envelope for attack, decay, sustain, and release. And we trigger. We trigger the attack and we trigger the release. And that is going to change it over time. Our attack time and our release time is the main ones that I've been using. The attack time is how quickly the sound will come in. Right? Every single time. Oh, we're just hearing these layers, but that's fine. We're just hearing the synth layers. So if I change the attack time to over a second, it'll take about a second or so to fade in. Release time, how quickly does it go away? Right now, if I take it down to 0 and hit the stop trigger, it faded out. Why did it fade out? Oh, there it goes. Needed to update. So hit stop and it stops. If I go to a second or somewhere around there, then it takes about a second to fade out. Okay. That gives us our control over starting and stopping. I should probably set those to something reasonable. And start. Then as this stops, there's one last player. This is the stop sound, the ending sound of the fire breath. So not only does this fade out, but if you turn up the stop here, probably too much, let's see, and you stop this, yeah, too much, obviously, for the mix, but gets the point across. It will transition as the synth fades out in that release. You'll have one last kind of fire blast. And it takes a little bit to balance these out to get them right. And I probably tweaked it a little too much here. But let's see what we get. Let's bring everything back. Start. Got the guttural part. I turned everything down a whole bunch. Let's bring that back. We'll start the sound. And then we'll stop the sound. And then, yeah, this is too much. So we'll start the sound. And we'll end the sound. Right? There's still a timing issue, right? So maybe we want this a little bit more so it takes a little longer to fade out. A little better. All right, so you can have a whole bunch of fun in here tweaking all of the different elements. We have our pink noise split into 3 bands. We have our start and our stop. Here's our start. Here's our guttural and designed fire. And here is our stop. The stop is actually over here past the ADSR, because for a little while I was like not getting stops. And then I realized that the ADSR was clamping the stop. So it was there. It was just being turned off pretty quickly. So I stuck it in here after the fact. And that gives us the full sound. So we now know that we have triggers to play the sound, to start the sweeping of the filters, and then to stop the sound. So let's go ahead, and next we are going to talk about how this sound actually gets started and stopped from the game and from the animations. All right. Please let me know if you have any questions or any concerns about how this is set up. Let me know in the comments. I can gladly discuss this a bit further. So, breathe fire. Where does this lead us? One very handy thing to use quite a bit is finding references. And so if I right click on this and I go to the reference viewer, I figure out what actually uses this breathe fire. And here's all my WAV files that make up that sound. And it gets connected to this animation. Spread fire, and also this blueprint. So let's go ahead and see where these things are triggered and where these start and stop. So it said fire while you're flying. Oh, let's take a look at all these. Which ones look like you're flying? Flying, it says fire in it. I know it says fire. Flying stationary fireball, fly stationary spread fire. That's what we want. So this is your animation sequence. And in here, we have a couple of different animation notifies. We have these MetaSound notifies and these Wise notifies. We're just talking about the MetaSounds for now, but to discuss how the breathing works, first off, we could ignore all of these. These are for flapping. These are for, if you actually notice when they trigger when the flap kind of starts, flap, flap. And the other things that we have are these notifies that say dragon breathe fire start and dragon breathe fire end. Now, animation notifies are a great way of getting sounds to trigger directly on an animation. And we use that for these flapping. I have MetaSound for the flap in here on each one of these. All we have to do is we would right click, we would add a notify, we would play a sound, and we would throw our MetaSound in there, and that's what we want. And that would work for the previous version of the Dragon Breath, where it was just one sound, it was just me going bah, and it didn't cut off with the animation, it just sort of played once. So in order to make this so that we have a start and a stop, we need to create our own custom animation notifies. And that is as simple as right-clicking and choosing Add Notify, choosing Manage Notifies. And it's just going to come in here and allow you to create a new notify. And if you create a new notify, it just creates something that you can name. And that's really all you need to do with it at this point. So I've created 2 of these: Dragon Breathe Fire Start, and Dragon Breathe Fire End. Create those, right click, add your notify, and you'll see all of the notifies that you create. They don't do much more beyond that. I have the details up over here, and there are some things that you can do, but for our purposes, that's really all we want to do. And well, that doesn't help us at all with actually placing any sounds on it. And I guess once you have the notify here, you would move this around a little bit. If you hold shift, you can drag it around and move the timeline cursor along with it. And you see, oh, there he goes. He's starting to breathe the fire. And we grab this one. Oops. We grab this one. Oops. No. Grab this one. There we go. And when you close the mouth, somewhere around there, well, there's a little after thing afterwards, as the flame kind of tapers out. So that gives us a little room for that. And we have our start and stop notifies. And all they do is just fire off at this point and do nothing. So let's actually use these animation notifies. And in order to do that, we want to go and trigger them in a blueprint. So the first thought might be to go to your dragon here, right? If I go into blueprints, Mountain Dragon blueprints, you'll find the Mountain Dragon, and you come in here, and this is where a lot of the dragon stuff happens. And you come in here and you right click and you say Dragon Breath, Dragon Breathe, Breathe, and it doesn't show up. And you're like, did I spell it right? I'm just leading you through all the fun machinations that it might be. And you're like, no, this isn't right. So it's not in your blueprint. It's not in your main character blueprint. Animation notifies only show up in the animation blueprint. Maybe you're screaming at your screen already and saying, no, those don't show up there. They show up in animation blueprint. So I guess I should do this. Go to Mountain Dragon, go to animation. You'll find the animation blueprint. The animation blueprint controls and triggers all of the animations. So we have Dragon Breathe Fire. That's the animation notify we created. If we do Dragon Breathe, yeah. Breathe Fire Start and Breathe Fire End. Oops, that's not the one we want. Dragon Breathe. We want the event, not the function. We want the event for Dragon Breathe Fire Start. And that's what this is. All right, and we want the event because this triggers, this output here triggers whenever that animation, oh goodness, I'm back here. Whenever this animation here, whenever this fires off, it will trigger this event. And send signal down here to the MetaSounds portion. So what we want to do is we want to play a sound. We want to play the sound that is actually attached to this dragon. So how do we do that? We could just kind of play the sound there, and it would trigger just fine every single time, but it would create a new audio component every time, and that's not necessarily what we want. We want something, if you're not familiar, an audio component is a component, a little piece of code, a little thing that is attached to the character. And you can move it around and place it in different points. But specifically, an audio component allows you to trigger a sound from it. It is like, sort of like, but not really, kind of like a speaker. That's why it's a speaker icon, but not entirely like a speaker. But that's where the sound is playing from. And it's constantly attached to the dragon. And as the dragon's head moves around in the animation, or as it flies around the screen or the world, the sound moves with it. So we have permanently attached this audio component. And how did we do that? We went to add, we went to this audio component, we created it, we named it something cooler than audio, and it's already here because that's where that is. Well, it got placed there, but it typically starts like over here at the root in the middle of the character, and you got to move it around to the point where it needs to be. And that's what we did here. We created one audio component for the dragon's breath. That's the breathing, the fire, the growling, anything like that. I also have another one attached up here for the wings. And this is going to play all the flaps, but we're not dealing with that right now. So we have this audio component attached directly to the character. So as the character's mouth moves around, so does the sound. And that will take us. Okay, we got that set up there. So we go back to our animation blueprint here. Oh, here. Bigger. More. All right, so we get that dragon component. And the way we did that was we got our mountain dragon. And where do we do this? Oh, mountain dragon. We got our mountain dragon, and where did we do that? Right here. Okay. When this starts, we cast this to the mountain dragon, and we set our mountain dragon. This happens to be on every tick of update, which is not the best, but that's where we have it set up currently. And we get the mountain dragon. We get the pawn's owner. We say, hey, whoever you are, if you're a mountain dragon, give it to us. Give us and set this, give us your blueprint. And we saved that. And we get this mountain dragon blueprint. And from that, you can get whatever is attached to that mountain dragon, like audio components. Audio component. Get dragon. There's a whole bunch of stuff with that, but there's our audio components. There's our wing one, there's a mouth one, and we got the mouth audio component, which allows us to play the sound that is attached. And the sound that is attached is that breathe fire. So it will play that breathe fire, and let me go just to show that off. Blueprint, dragon mouth audio component. Dragon mouth audio component has that breathe fire. So this is how we trigger that particular sound. Once we do that, we have to get the dragon blueprint again, get the audio component, and this time we are going to send a trigger parameter. What is a trigger parameter? Well, we saw our triggers previously. Component, MetaSounds, breathe fire. And we have our triggers. Breathe fire start, breathe, fire, stop. Those were the extra ones. Remember, this one made the filters, biquad filters, sweep all over the place. Breathe, fire, stop will stop. That also plays the stop or plays the ending. So once we play the sound, once we start the meta sound, we have to trigger this breathe, fire, start. And we could have put the breathe, fire, start on the play. I just separated it out for, honestly, initially for testing reasons, and just kept it that way. Breathe, fire, start. We'll start those filters panning all around. Then it goes off into the Y section. And just for now, we don't have to pay attention to that because this is doing similar things, as in it's starting and stopping the Y's event. Over here, dragon breath end. We're going to hit that stop. That stop is going to stop the sounds. It's also going to play out that breathe, fire, stop, or the ending of that whole fire breath animation. So now when we bring our character up here, he breathes fire, starts, stops. There should be the little ending at the end. Now, at this point, it would be tweaking. It would be adjusting the mix. It would be changing the timing, subtle timings in that animation. What you change... Fire. What you change here can subtly adjust when the beginning of that flame starts and when the beginning of the end of that flame starts. Subtly adjusting attack and release will control how things transition from one element to the next. I guess one of the last things to point out is attenuation. If I just have no attenuation on this sound, you will hear it from everywhere. If you got closer or farther away from this dragon, you can't do that with this camera. But notice if I'm back here, you hear it at one level. If I get up closer, you hear it at a closer level. There's also some low pass filter that opens and closes depending on where I'm positioned overall. And all that comes from the attenuation. Hello, get my mouse over there. Thank you. All of that comes from the attenuation. And our attenuation here, we've created one specifically for breathe fire. And do I have it set up so you can visualize this too. If I go in here and use au.3dvisualize.attenuation space 1, right? This is the console. Hit tilde button to bring this up and down. Type in this to visualize attenuation. And what you see here is you see that audio component that was attached to the character's mouth. It moves around as the character moves. And you'll notice that you have this inner radius and this outer radius, this kind of bigger dome that's way kind of outside this character. And those represent the attenuation, inner radius, and the fall off distance. I have 200 units and 1500 units. Typically those are in centimeters. Depends on the scaling you have for your game. If your game is about ants or if your game is about the Galactic Empire, you might have two different scales of what 200 and 1500 mean. But for right now, that's just 200 is less than 1500. I don't know. It's you can probably get much more specific if you wanted to pay attention to how much each one of these units is and how far does that go. And but this gives you a visual representation that if I reduce this. No, not there. Here. Right? If I made it like 50 and that's not 50. 50 and 200 instead of 200 and 1500, then you won't hear it unless you're right up. Oh, there you go. See it? There you go. Now you see it. Right there, you're on it. Now you're out. Now you're in it. Now you're out. And you can't hear it anymore. Unless you're right up. Right there. That's the magic of attenuation. Attenuation does other things too. Attenuation affects spatialization, or how things might be heard as panning. It affects air absorption. This is low pass or high pass cutoffs. A lot of times, depending on how far the sound is, as it gets farther away, the highs might roll off. Also, if it gets farther and farther away, you might lose the low end depending on distance. So let me change this back to 200, 1500. And other elements of attenuation, overall, focus, reverb, occlusion, that kind of go a little beyond what we are discussing right now. Okay. Phew. That is a lot of things to discuss for our fire breath. If you have any other questions about how this was set up, please let me know. Of course, there's a lot more to go into with the dragon, and that's what we want to discuss in our future videos. So thanks for sticking with me. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.